Recording. Excellent. So welcome. I want to start by saying, acknowledging that here in Freeport, Maine, I'm standing on Wabanaki and Abenaki territories. And if you're interested in learning more about the Indigenous territory you may be standing on, you can check out this website here. We want to wish you all a happy World Breastfeeding Week. And the objectives you can see here are to inform, anchor, engage, and galvanize. And that is what we are doing here today in our coalition meeting. So really happy to have you all here. And if this is your first introduction to the Maine State Breastfeeding Coalition, we are a nonprofit that became established as a 501c3 in 2017. We have a board of 11 incredible leaders, and our vision is that when every baby receives human milk, we will be a healthier Maine. And our mission is that we are a welcoming and broad network of people supporting families who value human milk and breast and chest feeding. Together, we work to enhance the culture of breastfeeding around the state through professional networking, advocacy, and education. So we have several committees that are always looking for volunteers. If you're interested, please fill out that form. Amanda will put that in the chat box, plus it'll be available on a shared Google Doc that I will share later in the meeting. And so a brief board update, just to give an update on what these committees have been up to. The advocacy committee has been in the past working on donor milk legislation, working on paid leave, and I believe we'll have some updates on the status of the paid leave initiative later on in the meeting, so stay tuned for that. And we're always open to other advocacy or legislative ideas that come forward. For instance, we are doing some brainstorming around Medicaid reimbursement for doula support. And we have had one meeting co-hosting or co-leading the meeting with Maine Women's Lobby and the Maine Children's Alliance to talk more about what that could look like. Is that a good option? How else can we bring the doula community together to talk more about how to make doula support more accessible? We have an events committee, and that committee meets every couple of weeks right now. It has been leading up to World Breastfeeding Week. We are always talking about different types of events. The next one that we will be talking about is a film screening, a documentary filmed in Maine called No One Told Me, and it was about a woman's postpartum experience. So stay tuned. We hope to have a couple of screenings coming up to share with you. We have a workplace committee, and that is working on developing workplace toolkit for employers and employees. And there's a lot of interest and a lot of talk, a lot of work being put into that. So if you're interested in being a part of that committee, let us know. We have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee working on an inclusivity statement, planning a book club, and other sort of DEI work and compliance. And we have a communications committee. We always are trying to improve our communications through our email list, social media, and our website. If you haven't been to our new website, please check it out. It's still mainebreastfeeds.org, but have fun poking around on that. We have lots of great resources and info there. And we have a fundraising committee, because in order to do this work, we need financial support to meet our strategic plan goals. We have an ambitious strategic plan, as we've shared before. So we're looking at grant writing and other fundraising ideas. And if you're wondering, one way that you can help with that, we do have a raffle. We want to give you a $100 Visa gift card. If you have attended any of our webinars this week, you're automatically entered. You can also increase your chances of winning by purchasing some raffle tickets through our Venmo account or making a donation at our PayPal page. So please consider supporting our work that way. We also want to thank our partners. We do have some sponsors, annual patron partners, supporters, and advocates, and we have had event supporters for this week's World Breastfeeding Week events and webinars. So we want to thank them very much and encourage you to check out what they offer as well. So this week, again, we have had some awesome webinars. They are now up on our YouTube page. I think Amanda can drop that link in the chat box at some point here too. So if you missed a webinar, if you're interested in checking it out, they were free. They continue to be free on our YouTube page as well. I think that they've been really, really fascinating. So I would encourage you to check it out and share with your folks. And if you attended and want a certificate of completion, you can let us know. We're working on creating something to send out to folks to be able to use if that's helpful in your workplace. Well, it'll probably be a standard kind of form for you to fill in your own name, but we will be sending that out to everyone who attended the webinars. And if you need anything different, then please let us know. So I know we have a number of other board members on the meeting right now. Does anyone else have anything you would like to add or share before we move on? Okay, so we will have the second part of the meeting to do more sharing, and I am really looking forward to that. For now, I would love to welcome Hannah and Bria to present today on empowering the solo lactating parent. So welcome Hannah and Bria. Let me see here. I will stop sharing my screen, and Bria, you should be able to start sharing yours.
Hi, I just gave it a try and it says that host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, even if you're co-host. Okay, well, hold on one moment. One more moment.
Sure, take your time.
Can you try it again, Bria? Because it works when I do it as a co-host.
Perfect. It is working now. Thank
Great.
you. Awesome. All right, Hannah, I'm ready when you are.
Awesome. So yeah, here's our presentation. It's on creating the village, empowering solo lactating parents. Next slide. And some things, this is sort of how we're gonna go today. We're gonna intro me, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about today about breastfeeding as a single teen parent or mom, and also going to talk a little bit about my exclusive pumping journey, which was a separate journey I had. And then Bria is going to talk about extended breastfeeding while having a co-parent. And then we'll talk about some resources. Next slide. So just a little bit about me. I'm Hannah Lord. My pronouns are she, her. I am a certified full spectrum doula, certified lactation counselor, certified postpartum and infant care doula. I'm running Peony Doula Company in Southern Maine, located in Portland. My passion is really centering reproductive justice around my care when supporting clients. And that's supporting all reproductive experiences, including fertility, abortion, loss, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. I'm also on the advocacy committee and DEI committee for Maine State Breastfeeding Coalition. Very, very, very recently joined the advocacy committee for Mabel Wadsworth Center. And I'm also a text line peer counselor volunteer for Exhale Pro Voice, and very recently a support group facilitator for Postpartum Support International's virtual support groups. And I currently live in Portland with my 9-year-old son Jude and my cat Mr. Mercury. Next slide. So I'm just going to say that as I describe my own lived experiences, I'm using the language that I used in that time period. I'm using the language that I describe myself, but generally, when I talk about lactation, I'm using more inclusive language, such as using body feeding, or when I'm working with clients, I'm using whatever language reflects what the clients talk and how they describe their experience. So I just want to make note on that. But when I found out I was pregnant the summer before my senior year of high school, from the start, I knew I would be my son's only parent. There was a lot of pressure from people around me who asserted their own opinions. It truly felt like I was under a microscope. From my first trimester, my provider at the time was pushing free formula sheets in front of me. I was told I would definitely need the free formula because I was a young mom doing it on my own. It just wasn't possible in their eyes to overcome the hurdles of breastfeeding because of my age, my lack of support, and lack of having a co-parent. As a professional, I think it's super important for people to check their biases. Maybe that would have been helpful advice for somebody who hadn't had the intention to exclusively breastfeed. But for me, it just put me in a whirlwind of anxiety my whole pregnancy that I wouldn't be able to use my own milk. All my family members from both sides of my family use formula. I'm the first person to breastfeed since my great grandmother who, lived on a farm. I didn't have family tips and support to sort of be passed down to me to assure me that when I was going through those hurdles, they were just normal parts of the experience. There was just another level of not being able to relate to my friends because they weren't parents yet. My friend Bria, which is on talking with me today, is actually my childhood friend, and she was a huge support system for me in high school. But for a lot of my friends, it was really hard for them to understand. When I attempted to go to parenting support groups, I felt like I couldn't relate because I was single and young. And when you become a parent, there is this identity shift of this new role. But for me, it was like I was going through multiple identity shifts because I was also going from being a teen to an adult. For teen parents and single parents, it can be extremely hard to make boundaries with the support people and helpers in our lives, although they mean well. With every single one of my birth and postpartum clients, it's one of the reasons why I do postpartum planning with them during their pregnancy. And one of the conversations that come up around that is pod mapping. It helps us identify who are their trusted resources in their life. It also helps us see if there is some lacking in support and how we can fill in those gaps. But one of the most important things we do talk about is sometimes there are resources in their lives and support people in their lives that want to be there, but they also need to figure out ways to make boundaries with them. And I remind my clients it's totally okay to be thankful you have support and also feeling frustrated when the support isn't so much what they need. Both feelings can be valid and true, and you don't have to compromise your boundaries just because someone is helping you. Help should be unconditional and centering truly what the newly postpartum person needs. It's hard to block out the noises of other people's unhelpful opinions or advice over the sleep deprivation and stress of doing it alone. And so, for some single parents, they just want to give up just because it's just hard to block out that background noise. It's exhausting. So for birth professionals, it's really important to really help them tap into what they want. And sometimes they just need somebody to help them feel empowered and confident in their own choices and intuition. Sometimes, when I'm working with teens and single parents, they will have guests come with them to their appointments, or when I'm working with them in their home, or sometimes I'm going to provider appointments with them as a doula. And at the beginning of a visit with my clients, I like to introduce myself, my pronouns, and invite everyone to introduce themselves. That way there's no assumptions on what the roles are of these support people in their lives. And I like to say, if you have contracts or intake forms, and they're ones that have spaces for the partner, if you can make a second version of that omits partner for single parents or uses more inclusive language that isn't necessarily partner, that can be really helpful for parents that are doing it without a partner. And I like to also, like I said at the beginning of this, I like to lead with what language they use to describe their experiences, and my forms and my contracts use inclusive language as well. During visits, I like to continuously include support people in the conversation. Sometimes that sleep deprivation makes it really hard for the lactating person to remember what we talked about, and having another set of ears can be super helpful. I like to sneak in tips for the support people on what they can do when they're around. And maybe it's just showing them like how to make supports with pillows, or reminding them nutritious food and hydration, to help bring around when they're around the lactating person. And if the support person has stigmatizing beliefs around lactation, I try to help them learn differently by normalizing this experience, really just killing them with kindness. Sometimes they just need one kind person with a smiling face to help them overcome generations of negative beliefs around lactation. And we live in a culture that unfortunately severely lacks providing the resources and care for a lot of single parents. It's really easy for people to sugarcoat other people's really hard struggles and realities, especially if they haven't really experienced it themselves. And sometimes the best thing you can do for someone going through something hard is just hold space for them and listen. It's less about what you have to say and more about how you can make space so they feel heard. You won't always have the answer or resources for the very unique experiences a single or a teen parent may go through, and that's okay. But validating their real emotions and experiences is absolutely vital in caring for them. Sometimes the best person to hold space for someone is somebody who has a similar lived experience. So make sure your client resource list is filled with lactation specialists, doulas, mental health specialists who have multiple different lived experiences. It's okay to refer to another lactation specialist if you think they'd be a better fit for the person. And here I have some little short version tips. Just, check your biases before offering. Ask yourself, is this what the client wants, or is this what you think they want? Encourage, focus on building confidence and trust and their own intuition. Holding space, sometimes it's less about what you say and how you can make space for them to feel comfortable. Holding space and being a listening ear can be just as important as advice giving. And be creative, help support people recognize the ways that they can center the lactating person. Next slide, please. And so then my next is about my exclusive pumping journey. And this last picture you can't really see, but I do have a freebie pump, and I'm at a show, and I was just pumping while I was there at I think State Theater. So before I started my gestational carrier journey, I knew I wanted to pump to help other local babies and parents. I didn't really care to sell it for money, although I joke that the supplies cost a fortune. But as a doula in the community, I knew how hard it was to get donor milk, especially when your baby wasn't a newborn. So I decided to donate to local Facebook groups, such as Human Milk for Human Babies and Eats on Feets, and also through doulas in the community who had clients. I knew that I was an ideal donor because I, of course, had the prior medical testing to qualify for surrogacy, and also with my dietary restrictions that I knew if people needed cow's milk-free milk, I was perfect. But during my pregnancy, one of my care providers told me that I wouldn't need, basically a maternity leave because I didn't have a baby. And even though we live in a country that doesn't really provide appropriate leave to birthing people, I was still pretty shocked by this comment. Just because I didn't have a baby didn't mean that my body didn't need to heal. And another midwife expressed concern that, I might put myself into a postpartum mood disorder if I tried to pump. Which I've read through my bereavement trainings that there is research that actually shows opposite. And if the birthing person wants to pump postpartum, it can help regulate the hormones after pregnancy, so it isn't such a shock to the body. A lot of people don't understand why somebody would want to exclusively pump for babies that aren't their own, but it's not really our place to discourage or judge, even if those intentions are well-meaning because they worry the pumping may negatively affect somebody's body. It's important to find ways to help make the experience feel supported. If somebody doesn't want to pump, I wouldn't push it onto them, but it definitely was hard for me to feel discouraged by the medical professionals in my life. After I had given birth, I was given the advice to pump every 2 hours on both sides, and I ended up with a very massive oversupply. This top corner picture, that was less than a week postpartum. The dads had said from I think they had taken 4 days worth of milk and it lasted them 2 weeks. It was not fun. But I realized how different it was from when I was feeding my son, where I'd feed one side at a time. And so, of course, I was telling my body to have this huge, massive supply and demand. And it felt so stuck. If I pumped, I told my body to make more. But if I don't pump, the clogged ducts get worse. And I truly had tried everything and nothing worked the way a baby would work to sort of suck the clogged ducts out. I ended up getting in a car accident on the way to an IBCLC appointment because of the sleep deprivation from pumping every 2 hours. And at the time, most lactation specialists really centered feeding by the chest or breast, or people who did a combo of both pumping and feeding by the chest or breast. So I had, a few weeks of clogged ducts not clearing up, being on antibiotics from the infections, ER trips. And then it got to the point where nobody really wanted my milk because of the multiple antibiotics I was on. And so it was funny, at the time, the best advice I got was from people who have the lived experience on social media and Instagram, who are exclusive pumpers. And so this is actually what inspired me to become a certified lactation counselor. And unfortunately, the training at the time barely touched on pumping, let alone exclusive pumping. And as the years have gone on, there is more acceptance around the exclusive pumping community and education around it. But my lived experience has definitely, I think, helped me better support my exclusive pumping clients. And I really urge lactation specialists to research exclusive pumping. Doulas, you can offer that postpartum planning session as early as the second trimester and include information on lactation and feeding education. You can help the lactating person really paint the picture of their soon-to-be reality. What supplies will they need? Can they plan a snack hydration cart near their bed or a comfy chair? How is your list of resources coming along? Are the lactation specialists on that list, knowledgeable and inclusive to all types of feeding? And just like I mentioned before, if you can refer to somebody who has the lived experience, that's ideal too. And so some of the bullet points, just to summarize, expand your education, learn from people who have the lived experience. And I put hashtag exclusive pumping because that's sort of where I found it on Instagram. Support paid family leave. And there, Kara had talked about, there is a push for that in Maine. Every postpartum person and their support systems should have access to paid family leave. And then I wanted to recommend this book, Where's the Mother? Stories from a Transgender Dad by Trevor McDonald, just to show the other side of things of being the parent searching for the donor milk and to learn more about that journey of exclusively feeding your baby human milk from donors. Next slide.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah. And thank you for inviting me to come share my story. Before I begin to introduce myself, I want to apologize. I can't get my camera to work for whatever reason. I tried to, and I ended up late, and I decided not to fiddle with it anymore, so I don't keep you all waiting. But yes, my name is Bria McCray. I do not work in the birth community, although I do jokingly say that maybe in a past life I did, or maybe later on in this life I will, but currently, I work for a small consulting company called Human Side as their operations and executive assistant. I live in North Carolina with my 4-year-old daughter, Jayla, who we affectionately call JJ. And it is here in North Carolina that I grew up with Hannah. As you can see a picture of us from when we were in high school. We've known each other since we were very young, and she's been one of my dearest friends for nearly 15 years. And I want to share a little bit about my journey as a mother who breastfed, as a co-parent. So to give you a little background, in 2017, my boyfriend Michael and I found out that I was pregnant. And to be honest with you all, we were not overtly excited about the news. And what sort of changed that and kind of connected us both to my pregnancy and to our daughter, I was just really educating ourselves while I was pregnant. Everything from child development to parenting styles and just everything. I was a new mother and I was very excited about learning everything. And the one thing I was most excited about was, hello, providing sustenance to my child from my own body. People would ask me all the time what I was most looking forward to, and I would say definitely breastfeeding. And so in 2018, early 2018, I gave birth to Jayla. And after a few initial hurdles during that first month, caused by a tongue tie, as well as just like medical professionals who just kind of wanted me to, oh, don't deal with that. Instead of going through the trouble of trying to figure out what's going on with the nursing, why don't you switch to formula, that sort of thing. After those initial hurdles, we were smooth sailing. We overcame them fairly quickly, thankfully, due to some wonderful resources in the just like the birth community down here in North Carolina. So everything was great. I was nursing Jayla on demand. Mike was he was extremely supportive. Something that I feel like is often attributed to the South is just like views and ideals that are not very accepting or inclusive. And I definitely experienced that, nursing openly in public. We didn't see a lot of that out here. And it was very comforting having Mike beside me to support me when we were out in public, supporting me when we were with family, as I was the only person to breastfeed, much like Hannah's story. And fortunately, in 2019, when Jayla was about a year and a half, Mike and I decided to go our separate ways, and we moved into separate households. The transition was a lot. I wasn't expecting it to be as difficult as it was. Just holistically, it was a very big change. My first time living on my own with a small child. I was still nursing her on demand at that time. She was still nursing to sleep and, nursing first thing in the morning and several times throughout the day. And it became a little bit difficult without having somebody by my side. Things like going out in public, I didn't drive, but going out in public with a small child and knowing that I'd have people watching me and not having the comfort of somebody by my side was definitely daunting. Something that was very helpful for me, though, was I had a lactation consultant who at the time didn't offer virtual support, but she was very kind in extending that offer to me so that I didn't have to worry about trying to travel, with like a small child and a cumbersome stroller or her bulky car seat. So it was nice to be able to address my concerns over FaceTime. And I often attribute some of my success to her and her graciousness in that area. When I think about my story and I think about the transition from that two-parent household to a single-parent household, I think a lot about Mike, right? He was wonderful. Like I said, he was a wonderful support, even after moving separately, right? But it was new for both of us. He had never been in a relationship with a woman who was breastfeeding, and I had never breastfed before. And I didn't know the support that I would need being in the home by myself, and he didn't know how to support me once he was no longer in the home. Right? In the home, it was easy. He could bring me snacks, make sure I had water, or if he knew that Jayla was falling asleep and we just started nursing and I might be there for a while, he, make sure I have a book or the remote in my hand. But it was different when I'm home alone. He couldn't do that. And I do think that's something that would have been beneficial. And then I think lactation consultants could consider when supporting families who are under a different household is how you can just sort of bridge the gap. How can you take sort of the information and the education that you provide to the lactating parent during your sessions to the other partner, whether it's following up by email or through text. But I also feel that we could take it a step further and just taking that initiative and reaching out to that co-parent and asking, like, how can I support you? What are your concerns? How can we address, your issues? How can we support you? I think it's wonderful that my lactation consultant, she centered me, and she was very helpful. But I do know that Mike and I both struggled with how we could bring him into the picture more. And I do think that those would have been wonderful offers for our family. All of that said, I am lucky to have been able to nurse Jayla until her second birthday. And I attribute that success, to the support that I got from her father, my doula, and the lactation consultant that my doula recommended to me. And I'm very thankful for that. Awesome. And yes, here's a few pictures of my daughter when she was younger, and a picture down here at the bottom during my water birth. Thank you again for allowing me to share my story. I'm going to pass it back to Hannah, who was going to close us out with just a few resources to leave for you all.
Yeah. So thank you, Bria. Thank you so much for being a part of this. It means so much. So some resources, Breastfeeding Rose. It was a resource that was mentioned in my CLC training, and it's a national nonprofit aimed to providing support, education, and networking opportunities for Black breastfeeding families and their providers. Postpartum Support International. It's an organization that I'm actually a facilitator for one of their virtual groups, but they have so many groups. We have a Maine chapter as well, and it's a national organization dedicated to providing perinatal support to childbearing families, including virtual support, like I said. And also I've had clients really benefit from their 24/7 helpline. My website is Peony Doula Company, and I provide birth and postpartum doula supports as well as lactation support in Maine. And then I just wanted to give another little shout out to Maine Paid Leave Coalition in Maine, dedicated to creating system changes regarding paid family leave and medical leave. And you can share your story to be a part of that incredible organization to push for that change. Next slide. Next slide, please. Oh, and then just want to say that I recently announced, thank you so much, Soft Corner, who is here actually today, who is going to be hosting, helping me host at their new birth center, the Inclusive Family Support Group. And it's a group celebrating all stages of LGBTQIA2S+ family building and single parenthood. If you are a single parent not in the queer community, I just ask that you are an ally to be part of the group. And all LGBTQIA2S+ folks are totally invited. And you are welcome if you are trying to conceive pregnant or a parent. And that should be starting in September, but may start in October, we will see. So yeah, I just wanted to say that that group that a lot of clients have been asking, like, we need a space, it's here. It's almost here. So yeah, thank you so much. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer them. It seems like we have a couple minutes.
Yes, thank you so much, Hannah and Bria. Folks have already thanked you for sharing your story. We know that stories are so powerful at educating folks on what real life is like. So thank you very much for sharing. And we do have a question from Robin asking about the Soft Corner group. Is it virtual or is it in person? And where is Soft Corner Midwifery located?
It's located at Soft Corner. I'll be posting it. They're just very generous to host the space. Morgan can talk. I see you.
We're finalizing renovations at the birth center. That's why the data is a little up in the air, but we're located in Bath, off of Richardson. So stay tuned.
Thank you. Excellent. What other questions do people have, or comments, or thoughts related to this topic? Other folks might have stories to share too, or experiences. We have a few minutes to share and ask and have a little discussion about this. So I don't know if you can see that question from Robin. Would breastfeeding rows be helpful for interracial families?
I'm not sure. I think if the lactating person is a person of color, that probably would be what it's more centered towards. But I'm sure if you reached out to them, they'd be able to say if that's the best support for your client or the person you're supporting.
Those are great resources too. We'll definitely make sure they're on our website. Thanks for sharing those, Hannah.
Absolutely.
Or any other final thoughts, Hannah or Bria? Any major points you really want to make sure that people take away today?
Well, I just want to say thank you for listening and holding space for me to share my story.
Yes, I agree. Like I mentioned, I'm not a part of the birth community, but I love being able to insert myself, and I appreciate you all allowing me to share my story. Thank you again.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you. And thanks everyone for listening and being part of this too. I will pass it on to Amanda to facilitate the next part of the meeting.
Hello, everyone. All right, I was just pulling up the questions. So this part of the meeting is really a time for open discussion. We call it connecting the dots, or new knowledge worth having. And I will put some of the prompts that we give as examples in the chat. So put that there, but really, you know, you don't have to answer all of these. You can share anything you'd like during this time. And Kara wanted to go first to share some things, and then we'll open it up to everyone else.
Awesome, thanks. And this is the part of the meeting, I know I mentioned we are recording, but it would be great to have your faces on the screen so we could see you while we're sharing and talking about these different parts of our work. So I'm going to put in the chat box.
Oh, Carrie, you just muted yourself.
Thank you. If you've been to a previous coalition meeting, you'll know that one thing we've been doing this year is creating a document where this is where I dump a lot of information that I plan on sharing during the meeting, and it's an open document that you can all edit as well and add anything that you think we should all know, add any resources that you think we should add to our website, or that folks can return back to this document to look back on. So I will actually share my screen so we can look at this together. And I'll go through it rather quickly because I really do want to hear from other folks too. So can you see that Google Doc? I think I lost everyone else.
Yes, I can see it.
Thank you. There we go. So I mentioned the website, mainebreastfeeds.org. So check that out if you haven't already. And our recorded webinars are on the YouTube page. I spoke already about our committees, and that committee form link is on that document. So if you join this document, you can get to that again. Also, a few ways to donate to the Breastfeeding Coalition through our PayPal page. You can start your own Facebook birthday fundraiser. They're really easy. You've probably seen them before. You can also sign up for Amazon Smile, where Maine State Breastfeeding Coalition receives a small percentage of donations through purchases. Previous new knowledge worth having documents that we've shared are linked in this page as well. And I have a couple of continuing education resources. I haven't updated this as much as I would like to, but this is a place in the document where you can also add any continuing education resources, any webinars, any websites that have great continuing ed. A lot of people look to us for credits for CLC recertification and things like that. So this can be a document where we can keep track of that. I'm regularly seeing new research come through, and again, haven't had a chance to plug into here, but if you have, please do. And some parent resources. Our resource library, when our website was revised, has a lot of resources on there. So take your time to sort through it and look through those. And some of these are some mental health resources that were shared at the last meeting too. And so I wanted to give an update on paid family and medical leave. And thank you, Hannah, for mentioning that. And you've also heard me talk about this before. You've seen this in meetings as well. But there is a new paid family medical leave. Let me just scroll down here. Coordinator named Katie, and she is creating this new email that just came in my inbox today, but she is going to be a point person. Let me scroll back up here again. So there's just a summary of what has happened with the paid leave program, and we're hoping that this initiative, that a bill will get passed through the legislature next session, but we need to get through an election. And so the Maine People's Alliance and the Maine Women's Lobby have worked together to file papers to make this a people's referendum in November of 2023. So that gives 2 chances for paid leave to potentially get passed next year, either through the legislature, which would be ideal, or a referendum next November. There is a new website, mainefamilyleave.org. They have been working on revising that website as well, and that is definitely something to take some time on, and to click on the take action section. As Hannah mentioned, you can share your story. It doesn't have to be, we were just talking the other day about how some people feel like they don't have a big, giant, really super moving story about paid leave, the need for paid leave or having it. It doesn't need to be like a mind-blowing experience. That it's really just any sort of story that could show that paid leave is necessary is great. So I'm doing some of those interviews through Zoom, or you can also fill in a form on the website to just share a bit about your experience. There's going to be a table at the Common Ground Fair where people can stop and learn about that. And if you're interested in volunteering with the Paid Leave Coalition or getting involved in any other way, signing up for this email list, then you can do that through the paid leave website too. And I think that is, oh, not quite it. There's a section on this document for other news. You may have also heard that the American Academy of Pediatrics recently revised their breastfeeding and human milk policy recommendation from exclusive breast milk feeding for 6 months, continued on past 1 year, or as long as mutually desired by mom and baby. They've extended that recommendation to 2 years or longer. And I think if we have time in the meeting, which we may, to talk more about this, we would love to hear your thoughts about those recommendations. So there are some links to read more. I would highly recommend that you read the actual policy statement. There is a section on equity. They do address that. There's a link here that talks about how the AAP is calling for more support for breastfeeding mothers based on this recommendation. So it's worth looking at, and we want to hear more about what you think about it. So we've just kind of pulled together this form. I'll put in the chat box for you to share, and for you to share with families you work with to kind of get their feedback, or how do they feel about this recommendation, and then to also learn what would help them reach that recommendation of 2 years. What are some barriers that are making it so that's more difficult? So again, if we have some more time to talk about that later, then that would be great. And I think that's it for me now. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from everyone, and Amanda will essentially, I think, like, call on folks to have each person share a bit. It can be 1 sentence, it can be nothing, it can be 5+ minutes. Looking forward to hearing from you.
All right, thanks, Kara. And again, Kara put that link for that Google Doc in the chat. All right, so first, actually, I wanted to let Brian talk, and it looks like there's some slides. So yeah, you can definitely share some slides.
Well,
Let's see if Kara can make it.
well, I mean, I don't want to hold things up if it's, you know, gonna take a little bit to get that worked out.
You should be good to go, Brian. And I think what you have to
Oh,
share would be really
all right.
interesting, to folks. So thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, we're happy
Thank
to
you.
hear it.
Well, we'll see. Let's hopefully it pull up. Okay.
Yeah, if you want to just give us a little intro too, so everyone
Yeah, I
knows.
will. I will. I'm just trying to. I used to try to multitask, and I found out it doesn't. It really doesn't work.
I'll stall for you.
As I get older. Okay. Is it up now or?
Yep, it looks great.
Okay. Oh, cool. Oh, hi. Yeah. Hi, everybody. And thank you to the council, to the coalition, and Kara for inviting me to give a brief update, or at least I just kind of at least wanted to introduce myself and let you know who I work for and where folks can, what we can do and what folks, where folks can reach us. So I'm Brian Cleesby. I'm with the U.S. Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division out of Manchester, New Hampshire. So I'm on the federal side, and our office covers Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. And like I said, we're based in Manchester, and I'm the outreach and planning specialist now for the office. For many years, I was an investigator, and on the enforcement side, so I wanted to slide over into this. So I'm on the non-enforcement side, so I'm out doing this sort of thing, as well as my planning work. So we try to reach out to stakeholders in various areas, not only like employer associations, but worker advocates, and I'm happy to meet some of the folks in this community today. And try to at least let you know, like I said, where to reach us if any of the folks that you're working with have a problem that we might be able to help them out with. So what do we do? Well, we enforce a number of federal labor laws. The main one, I'd say, I'll just kind of keep moving along here because I know it's about 5 minutes. You said the Fair Labor Standards Act. And I'd be happy to come back at a later time and do a more thorough overview of the work that we do. But the main one I'd say is the Fair Labor Standards Act. That's where the federal minimum wage, overtime, and child labor rules come into play. And back in a little over 10 years ago now, they added nursing mothers protections under the overtime section of that act. So that's why I want to make sure that we're out and doing some work in this area as well. In fact, on Tuesday I was at the World Breastfeeding World Breastfeeding Celebration and Walk that they hold in Concord, at the State House grounds, with some of the folks in New Hampshire that put it on, like through the New Hampshire Public Health Service and one of the community action programs. It was a very nice event. And if you guys have anything in the future like that, let me know. I think it's a great way to connect with folks. And after a couple of years of doing webinars, that would be a welcome reprieve. But we also enforce some other Family and Medical Leave Act, the 12 weeks of unpaid job protected leave for employers who or meet certain size, and for employees, and also for public sector employers, and also for employees who meet certain criteria, as well as a number of other laws. So I just kind of wanted to mention that some of the rules that we have, I think they somewhat mirror the state protections, except that for us, it's only extends, the nursing mother protections only extend for 1 year after the birth of the child. And the mothers that would be covered under this, the working mothers, would be those that are entitled to overtime under the Fair Labor Standards Act. So that's just a couple of little caveats there. But otherwise, in the first year, employers have to offer reasonable amount of break time. And I think this is similar language, like as to what the state has. To express milk is needed, as often as needed, and in a place, a key thing other than a bathroom, and that's secluded, it's free from intrusion. A couple of things that I wanted to point out, because I know this is going to keep this really brief. The Fair Labor Standards Act has a retaliatory or anti-retaliation provisions. So employers that interfere with workers' rights, like say for, minimum wage, overtime, or because they're trying to exercise their rights under the nursing mothers provisions, are protected. And one of the things that I included in here, and I will, like, after I get off, I'll put some of the links to these materials in the chat as well, if it's okay. But with this slide, the header is a link to a blog article that was written by one of my counterparts out on the West Coast. I just think in case you might want to take a look at it, kind of gives you a good idea of the kind of work that we do in this area. And this was a mother that whose employer, interfered with her rights to, express milk, and they. By doing so, like, one of the things, like, she ended up receiving, I think it was a little over $13,000 because of the interference, and to make to remedy the violations that that had taken place. So it's an interesting article you may want to take a look at. For our resources, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty on some of these things, the best place I'd say on the federal side for the protections that we enforce is and again, the header on here is a link to the webpage that we have our resources for nursing mothers in one place. So we have, among other things that I wanted to mention, we have nursing mothers rights cards. And I can order in case, and I've done this, like, for the folks, some of the folks in the community down my way. If they wanted to, have a bulk order, you could reach out to me. Again, I'll put my contact information in the chat to send you cards. If you would like to, have those available for the people that you're working with. We also have on that webpage frequently asked questions and a PowerPoint presentation. Our contact information. So in Maine, employees, worker advocates, if they happen to have an issue, that you become aware of, you can contact our office to discuss it, and also to file a complaint. And there's no charge for complaints, and we try to keep the information confidential to the maximum extent of the law. But in some of these kind of situations, it might be where we would have to, if there was a particular problem, it might be quicker to, if the person affected said, yeah, we'll give you permission, we can contact the employer to try to get that remedied as quickly as possible. But our public number is the 603-666-7716. We have investigators on duty Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. I also put my contact information on this slide as well. So let's try to keep this real quick. So disclaimer, hopefully everything that I just said was accurate, especially since it's being recorded. But if there happens to be, something in this area, you could reach out to us, like within that first year, as well as I think you could contact the state or direct people to the state as well. But I at least wanted to let you know that we are a resource and we are available. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. So thank you. Did I go over the time? I hope not.
No, that's great. Great information. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, if you could put any of those links in the chat right now, that would be great. I don't know if we can have those slides and share them on the Google Doc that we were sharing today, if that's okay, or just the links and the contact info.
Okay, yeah, I can get you some of the stuff, like the ones, especially the full slide deck. I can get to you. I think it might be helpful, but yeah, I'll put those in there, and also I'll include in case anybody's interested. I had we had a tweet that came out that's on our our Twitter account that came out yesterday. Relative to the work that we did, or the trip that I had to the Concord celebration. So in case anybody wants to take a look at it, I have a couple of pictures and again some links to our resources. So thank you, appreciate the time.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Brian?
Actually, I do. This is Deb Hoffman. I'm a public health nurse. Does an employer also have to provide a place for them to store the breast milk, like a refrigerator or some sort of cooling?
They should. Oh yeah, they should be providing a space that's functional for use. So, I mean, I think that can come into play with that.
Yeah, I know I've heard of that being an issue before, that people don't want you know, breast milk in like the break room fridge or something, even though there's cow's milk in there, but you know, it's fine. So that,
But yeah, I could check a little further on that, but I would think that might come under the functional space part of it. The thing is, and again, like the state, you know, I don't know if they have more information on some of these things, but you know, we don't have a ton of guidance that goes along with those protections that were put into place compared to some of the other protections that we've been enforcing for 80 years. You know, this is relatively newer, like for us.
And I have another question that someone else had asked me earlier about these resources. I'm not sure if she's still on, but are they in other languages?
I can check on that too, because I think it's some we have them in Spanish. I know like we have the worker rights cards in Spanish, so I can definitely send bulk shipments on both English and Spanish. I'm not sure that we have it in any other languages at this point. Was there one in particular that you're like Haitian Creole or Brazilian Portuguese? Because we're always trying to expand the number of our publications that are translated into other languages.
Yeah, I mean, I'd encourage anyone on the call to type in the chat box, what other languages you'd like to see. I think French and Portuguese, Lingala are languages that I'm hearing a need for.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's good to, you know, keep putting in that, giving them that feedback, you know, that, yeah, we're still having a call for these, you know, translations in these other languages. So thank you.
Spanish and Arabic just came through.
Yeah, Spanish, where just about everything that we have is in Spanish now, like on our website, and also the publications. Yeah, it's just some of the other languages. It's just not as, we don't have as many of them, of the different time, especially some of the, we have worker rights cards and non-nursing mothers worker right cards in a number of languages, but I'm pretty sure the last time I checked, I only saw it for Spanish. So I'll double check again, and I can provide, you know, Kara or anything that I find, but I'm pretty sure it's Spanish only.
great. Thank you. Any other questions for Brian?
Spanish. Okay. Well, thank you again for the time. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you for sharing. Is there anybody else that wanted to go that needs to leave early? You could go now if you'd like to share anything. Otherwise, I will go around, and if you don't have anything to share, that's okay. But if you do want to just introduce yourself, your name, your pronouns if you'd like, and then what organization you're from or what brings you here. So let's start with Nicole.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Hart. I'm on the MSBC board, and I co-own Maine Mother and Company, a perinatal resource center in Brunswick. New things at Maine Mother and Company. We're really excited. We're collaborating with, well, on our own and in collaborating with Birth Roots, actually. We are piloting a feeding clinic starting in September. I will post the link to the registration page in the chat box. And the idea is so Paula Norcutt, my business partner, will be doing quick checks with new parents in a group setting at Birth Roots in Portland and at our space in Brunswick. And we're hoping this will be a lower cost way for folks to access support from an IBCLC. And so kind of looking at this as a place where we can see the feeding parents who maybe just need some more encouragement, right? Without them having to invest in a private visit if their insurance isn't covering with Paula. And also connecting new parents with each other, right? So we'll be using these, they'll leave with a mini plan, a mini written plan for next steps. And
if Paula or myself, I won't probably be there in September, but maybe later in the fall, thinks they really do need a private assessment, then they'll get a referral for that and some interim things they can be doing in the meantime to make feeding more comfortable or to address whatever issues they came to the clinic with. So it'll be, again, Paula Norcott, who's an IBCLC in Brunswick, that many of you know, kind of making rounds with assistance from, we have a really wonderful intern who'll probably be doing the notes. And then once I'm kind of back in commission after having this baby, I will be doing the clinics with her. And Nina just very kindly put the links in the chat box. We're really excited to be doing this at Birth Roots and at our space in Brunswick and be collaborating in that way. I think we're going to reach a lot more folks and get them connected to each other. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions about that. If you have clients in the greater Portland or greater Brunswick area, like between those two locations, that's covering quite a bit of mid-coast and southern Maine. Feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Nicole. Can you put your contact info in the chat box so people can? And we look forward to hearing how it goes and if there are ways that other people around the state can replicate something like that too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Nicole? All right. Nina, would you like to go next?
Yeah, that's perfect because I was going to say the same thing. I'm Nina Emlin. I am a doula and CLC and board member of MSBC and operations manager at Birth Roots. And I'm glad Nicole mentioned the feeding clinic. I was going to mention that as well. I think it's a wonderful idea. I love the concept of making it more accessible financially and the opportunity to build community among postpartum parents. And I think that there's a great opportunity to replicate, like Kara said, in different communities around the state. So we will keep you posted on how it goes.
Great, thank you. Deborah, would you like to share anything?
Sure. I'm Deborah Hoffman. I'm a public health nurse out of the Bangor area. I think we just get a lot of connection through the Breastfeeding Coalition locally. We have one right here in Bangor, but it's nice to do this through seeing it statewide and what else is going on, you know, throughout the state. I think it's just important to normalize breastfeeding. I think, you know, we keep hearing stories about, you know, that these young ladies have told that they get a lot of resistance if they breastfeed out in public or by family members because it's considered old fashioned or somehow, you know, only poor people do that. And just to normalize it like they do in some of the European countries. And it's almost like families wrap around each other and support this breastfeeding mom. And we just seem like, you know, in this country, it's all about pushing these people back into the workforce and having the kids go in daycare and, you know, having that time off, getting that family leave. I'm just really, really happy to see that legislation. You know, we work a lot with fragile families, families at risk, babies exposed to substances in utero, domestic violence. But, you know, we also, you know, visit intact families, and we're here for everybody to support breastfeeding, whether it be a fragile preemie coming out of NICU or, you know, a mom that just needs breastfeeding support. And I think a lot of providers don't realize what the resources are out in the community. So they want to get these babies, you know, the weight put on. They want to see those numbers and ounces that the baby has taken. And we're here as a resource. We can do those in-home visits. We can weigh the baby. We can provide the breastfeeding support. And we're a resource. And so let us be known. And we're doing home visits. You know, we're we protect ourselves with masks with COVID, but we're hoping that families become more comfortable with what's going on with COVID and just be more accepting to our services, and the providers, actually make the referrals. Thank you.
Great, thank you for sharing. Shauna, did you have anything that you'd like to share?
Sure. Hi, I'm Shauna Goulet. I am a labor and delivery nurse at Eastern Maine Medical Center, and I'm a CLC. I'm one of our childbirth educators, and I am currently sitting in Waterville at my daughter's, where some of you know my story before. I've been her lactation support and childbirth support down here. And Deborah, I thank the visiting nurses that come, because we have Maine Families is back coming, or Cradle Me is back coming, doing weight checks on Finney, because we're 10 and a half months old and we're 13 and almost a half pounds, but we are 4 teeth in, toddling all over the place. Stephanie's still exclusively breastfeeding. Finney's eating anything off anybody's plate that she wants to eat and doing great. I was very excited to see the American Academy of Pediatrics new statement, because I wholly support all that breastfeeding that we get our patients doing. And I love to talk with all of my patients when I get their intake, when we admit them in labor and delivery, and see what their plans are and see where they feel their barriers are and how we can help them with that. And it's just so important to get that word out there. And I know with COVID and the short staffing that everyone has in all departments, I feel like maybe some of those reasons are why some of our providers aren't promoting some of the different programs. They don't take the time to truly understand them and what resources they can be for clients and stuff. And it's too easy to maybe just say, oh, they need to gain, let's give them formula or whatever. But there are resources out there to be able to help these people. And I just wish that we could do more of that. I've kind of been disconnected for the summer. I got to enjoy my granddaughter and stuff. And so I'm back working a whole bunch. I've got my stuff all laid out here, and I've got my emails straightened back out. So hopefully I'll get all our messages and get back on a regular meetings.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for being a great support for your daughter too. All right, Hannah, you are next. I know you shared a lot, so I don't know if you have any more to share, but I appreciate everything that you shared. And if you have any more, happy to hear it.
I don't think I have much to share. Hannah, she, her pronouns, and my business is Peony Doula Company, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, feel free to put that in the chat to your business. Okay, and then Robin, you just popped up because your video came on. Would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm Robin Snyder Drummond. I live in Ellsworth, Maine, and I am going to be offering office visits with in Ellsworth. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's my schedule for the summer. This is with Kristen Hayward. She's a DNP and CNM. She has a private practice called Anchored Women's Health in Ellsworth, and that's where my consultations will be. I'll put my website, birthready.com, in the chat, and I'll also put Kristen's private practice website in there. So there you are. In Ellsworth, there's office consults with an IBCLC.
Thanks. And we want to thank Robin for doing some website work for us and blogs. We really appreciate that support.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say, if people have an interesting story or there's a concern and they've done a little research, I mean, you can write to me. I'll put my email address in the chat. But I'm doing an interview with Jenna Marion, who gave a presentation. I would like to keep following up with things that we discuss and put them on the blog so that we'll keep our conversations going. So let me know if you want to do something for a blog. That's great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Morgan from Soft Corner Midwifery. Do you have anything to share?
Hi, I'm Morgan. I'm a CPM with Soft Corner Midwifery. Our exciting news is that the birth center we're renovating is opening in September. So everybody stay tuned in Bath.
Yay, that's exciting. We look forward to hearing more about that. All right, I have Ellen next. You are muted, Ellen, if you are available. Okay, we will go to Rachel. Did you have anything to share?
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Criswell. I'm a family physician and IBCLC in Skowhegan. I just wanted to share that I always provide these little environmental health updates. And the most recent one is that the National Academy of Science just came out with some guidance regarding PFAS, which is a chemical we're seeing all around our state. They acknowledged that PFAS is passed to infants from parents' milk, and they indicated a need for more research about how that happens and what the long-term effects of infants are. That seems like a pretty obvious and lame statement, I guess, but I think the exciting thing is that, you know, it is showing that at a federal level, there's recognition that there needs to be more research about contamination in breast milk and how that might affect infants and how we can work with lactating families to mitigate those effects. So I think it's really exciting. I think there's going to be a lot more in the pipeline supporting lactating families who are concerned about chemical contaminations, and I'll let you know as more happens.
And Dr. Criswell will be presenting at our next coalition meeting on October 6th about this topic. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that.
Thanks so much. And Hannah, thank you so much for your presentation. Both your and Bria's stories are really inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all that. All right. Jennifer, would you like to share anything?
Me, Jennifer? Is there another one?
Yes, it's just
Okay.
you.
Just me. So at York County WIC, we're celebrating World Breastfeeding Week. We are doing a lot of social media posts and like a lot of information and sharing like the Maine State Breastfeeding Coalition schedule of events as well. Not a lot has changed. York County is still doing a lot of our appointments virtually. If somebody wants to come in to be weighed and measured, we are offering that as an option for them as well. Still offering a lot of breastfeeding support and supplies as needed. And then offering a lot of other resources that are in our community as well. Still having some issues with formula. If parents have questions on that, we always recommend that they call their local WIC office. But like we are seeing some initiation rates that are improving slightly for breastfeeding, chest feeding. So that's been exciting. I've had some more parents that had never thought about trying it. So that's been a positive development in the last little bit. So that's York County right now.
Great, thanks for sharing.
Thanks.
Let's see. Brenna, did you want to go next?
Sure. Sorry, my camera's down right now. I'm actually joined by my director, Brooks, as well. We have very similar updates like Jennifer did. Same thing going with the formula as well. Celebrating World Breastfeeding Week with social media posts. Our appointments are also doing some in person and some lactation services in person. And then most of ours are over the phone and continue to be over the phone. Brooks, do you have anything you want to add? No, you got it. All right, thank you for having us.
Thank you. And then Lori. Are you there? Lori, you're muted if you're trying to talk. All right, we'll go with Fiona. Are you there? Do you have anything to share? Okay, moving on to Brian. Do you have anything you want to share?
Hi,
Hello.
Brianne Bradley. I am with the Mother's Milk Bank Northeast. We supply donor breast milk, pasteurized donor breast milk to hospitals in the area. And I love just joining your conversations. If anybody has questions, I can put my information in the chat.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know Brooke put in the chat that she cannot talk right now. Miriam, did you want to share anything, introduce yourself? Oh, she left. If there's anyone else that I missed, or that came back on, if you want to introduce yourself and share anything, we're just going over any updates we have in our work, any questions that we have, any research, legislation. Fiona said, not able to talk right now with kids, doula living in Portland. We love doulas. I'm also a doula, so thanks for being here. All right, Miriam, I see you came back on. I don't know if you can hear me, but if you wanted to share, you're welcome to. Okay, well, we can open it back up if there's anyone that had anything else they wanted to add. Kara, I know you went through that document fast. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to talk about within that.
I guess I just wanted to offer up the opportunity to talk more about the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendation. I think, Shauna, I appreciated your sharing what your thoughts are about that. So I just wanted to open it up for the opportunity to talk more about that. Does anyone have any immediate thoughts or any articles that you've read or discussions you've been a part of that are related to that? Or was this the first you'd heard of it? I know that we haven't actually done any sort of publicity around it yet. So
yeah, Kara, did you want to give a quick summary of what it actually is, or what it was before and what it's changed to?
Yeah, so it was the policy statement from the AAP that a lot of folks go by, that are just the only major change in the recommendation was to go to encourage, I think they say they support breastfeeding, continued breastfeeding is how they put it, through 2 years now instead of just 1. And still saying, you know, or as long as mutually desired by the mother and the baby. And I did take some time to read through it, and you know, they do recognize, you know, social determinants of health and disparities that can affect the duration of breastfeeding. And I see that Robin is unmuted, so I want to give Robin a chance to share some, if or were you not wanting to say anything or share anything?
No, I think, I mean, personally, I think it's great that they're saying 2 years or more. And especially after we saw that very excellent webinar about food allergies and how the gut really is more intact by 2 years. The complaints that I've heard, I read an article, I think it was in the New York Times, and the mom was really pretty pissed because she said, how am I going to do this? Because I have to work. So I'm really hoping that this dovetails with paid family leave, and that people start seeing the bigger picture about family support and public health. So that has been my take. I personally think it's great to keep continuing breastfeeding and making it more normal and making it more positive. And we just have to keep sending that message. So that's what I feel about it. Nina.
Yes, I agree, Robin. And I think there are just 2 different ways to look at this. And one is how we as lactation professionals who support parents read it. And we hear that it's positive to support families to breastfeed for 2 years and beyond, or as long as mutually desirable. But obviously parents are reading it differently. And I've heard from a lot of parents, such as I also read that New York Times article, who just feel like they're being completely buried under expectations and responsibilities
and they didn't necessarily read all the fine print of the statement, but that's important because they don't have time to read the fine print of the statement because they're parents in America right now. And so I think we need to think as professionals about how we talk about it and how our messaging is received by parents, and make these, whatever statements we make sure that they're cushioned with the reality that parents don't even have legal protections to pump at work, let alone paid time off to be with their babies. So it's just, I think it's a lot. And I think it's really, I like the idea a lot of gathering input from families to just, what is the pulse? Like how do people feel when they hear these words? And because it's not as simple as just, this is great, because we've seen that our politicians can't even agree to give we can't even agree to give families 4 weeks off to be with their babies after they're born. And so if that's the truth that we're up against, how do we bridge that gap?
Well, my point is that that's what we have to change in order for
I
this to
totally
work.
agree.
And also there are federal regulations, as Brian Cleesby was just saying. There are some laws about having time off. I mean, only up to a year, and you have to be eligible for overtime, etc. But I think we need to send the message of what is positive about this and what is working and what we can build from there. And I agree with you, Nina, that you have to listen to the parents. And I don't believe in saying, yeah, this is great, you should do this for 2 years. I don't think any of us approach it that way.
Right.
There are things that are working and could work better. So that's the point.
Yes, I do agree. And I just do want to clarify, though, that the current federal laws for protecting women in the workplace or body feeding families in the workplace don't apply to approximately 9 million working mothers and chest feeding parents. So there are some protections in place, but teachers, a lot of nurses, flight attendants, like huge populations of people are not protected. And so it's just important to remember that, I think, when we talk about it.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Anyone else have something they want to say about it? Nicole?
Yeah, I don't know that I have anything new besides what Nina said, but just kind of echoing, like, I think it was I love to encourage, if this offers encouragement to folks who are breastfeeding, body feeding beyond the 1 year mark, reducing any stigma or lack of kind of like official support, especially from pediatricians around that, I am all for. I found the timing of this announcement extremely problematic and tone deaf and out of touch. And yeah, no new parents are reading the fine print to like get all the context. Like that's not how it works. And so, and I do think the lack of kind of clear discussion around addressing maternal mental health, that is very problematic too. So I think for a lot of folks, what I'm hearing is frustration that they feel like the goalpost just got moved, but the level of support they're receiving has stayed at this very minimal, spotty level. And we're just in this really shitty climate around families and supporting families right now, even with all the good stuff happening around paid family leave, like losing bodily autonomy for birthing parents. And like, there's just so much going on that I kind of wish they just held on to this for a little bit longer. Yeah, so I have complicated feelings about it. I do, and I also have doubts around how much of a difference this will make to folks who are feeding their babies breast milk for longer than a year. I don't know. Mixed feelings, but I think it's important,
I don't think we have very many folks who are like coming to our support groups, for example, and it's not an unbiased sample of people. They're coming to support groups because they're struggling on average, who didn't have really complicated feelings about those new guidelines. So that's all.
I wonder too how many pediatricians are going to share this with their families too. Like how are families going to hear about this other than reading news articles or blog posts? Is because I think that a lot of folks in healthcare understand that meeting a 3-month goal is hard.
Yes.
Month goal is hard. Meeting a year was already
yes
a goal for a lot of people. And so 2 years, I hope, to kind of what Robin was saying, I'll be excited to not have to explain to people, if this helps, that it's not that at 1 year cow's milk becomes better.
Right.
Like, so the recommendation is for a year or longer, but you don't have to switch over at a year. So this might help with that. But I do wonder, I'm planning on reaching out to the executive director of Maine's AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics chapter, and just talking with her about what does that group, who supports the AAP recommendations, what do they plan on doing to help make this a reality and a possibility for people? And how can we work together to make that possible? Because it's really, and there is a section, it's a small paragraph that says the role of the pediatrician and what the role of the pediatrician is to help make this possible. So yeah, Rachel, I saw that you had unmuted a few minutes ago, but then went back on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree with everything that's been said. And wouldn't it be fantastic if this was also accompanied by a huge advocacy push from the AAP for the Pump Act and paid leave and all those things. But I was also just going to say, I find in my practice that often it sort of falls into two groups. It's people who are just want to breastfeed as long as possible, and so I don't think this will make much of a difference for them. They'll breastfeed as long as they can and want to. And then it's people who are trying to get to 6 weeks or 3 months or 6 months, or just as far as they possibly can before they have to get back to work and have to stop pumping. So I agree with Nicole in saying I'm not sure how much of a difference this will make for families. I think that 1 year mark was such a high goal for so many people. The 2 year mark is like, wow, whatever, But isn't it great that we're moving the goalpost a little bit, and maybe we'll move towards that as a society one day.
If that helps to, encourage foundations and organizations to help financially support the work that needs to be done, and more staff training and all the things that the Breastfeeding Coalition is trying to do, if there could be more financial support as a result of this recommendation, that would be great. I'm a little skeptical about that, but we'll see.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to say about it? I was just reading the fine print of it. It's a lot. There's a lot of fine print. Lots of tables.
You need to reread it a few times, but
yeah, I feel like I need a highlighter.
Again, I'm glad to see that they are showing that it continues to be beneficial. Breast milk continues to be beneficial. And if it is at 1.5 years of age, then it definitely is earlier on. And so how can we just boost the support for the earlier on period?
Kara, I was wondering if I could ask a technical question to the group, if people have, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I encountered a situation on the floor recently, on the labor floor. I had an infant who was having some failure to thrive. We ended up rehospitalizing the baby for like an infectious workup and a cardiac workup. Turned out she did have a UTI, so we treated that. And the recommendation from the NICU that I was consulting with was to fortify the breast milk to increase the caloric content. And I got feedback from my nursing staff that that's not something that's safe to do. And the concern was for, I want to say it's like cryptospores, something like that. I'm using the wrong word, I'm sure. But when I spoke to the NICU, they said, oh, we do this all the time. We just mix powdered formula into the milk. What we ended up doing, which was a bummer, was that we ended up switching, the mom would breastfeed and then we would supplement with formula. So I felt like the mom really, really wanted to feed with human milk. And so I was feeling like we had kind of failed her by not being able to fortify human milk and give that as a supplement rather than formula. But I would love to hear people's thoughts on it, and if that's a safe thing to do, and if we need to be updating our practices here at Reddington or what.
I have something to say about that.
Yes, please do.
There was a talk, the Massachusetts Lactation Consultants Association 3 or 4 years ago had some talks about this. And Marion, I believe, Anderson, her last name is Anderson. She's the medical director at Anna Jakes Hospital. And she talked about, they use only human milk at Anna Jakes Hospital, only human milk for all babies. And she actually we all have that same concern. Why aren't you supposed to sterilize the formula powder? Why are you putting it in the milk? And she actually asked formula companies and they said, oh, we don't know anything about that. So they're keeping their hands off that. But at Boston Medical Center, they have a chromatograph and they spin out, so to speak. This is my cartoon version of technology. They spin out the fat and then they scoop the fat and they add that to the milk. So you get the extra calories from human cream, so to speak. So that might be an alternative. I mean, I'm thinking the low tech thing would be to have pumped milk and then you put it in the refrigerator and then the cream is on the top and you just take that and add that. I'm just thinking, but that issue has not really been resolved. And I've heard that a lot from people in hospitals or pediatric practices. And I don't have any statistics on contamination, but it seems like it would be a concern. So I hear what you're saying.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great idea about skimming off the cream. That's a really good idea if we have a good supply.
Yeah, the doctor, she's the medical director at Anna Jakes Hospital, and I'm using that as my reference.
Okay.
Just to make it a little more valid. And then the other person, if I remember her name, oh, well, forget it. It's at BMC. Her name is Kim somebody. That's not very helpful, but anyhow, I just wanted you to know those were 2 professional resources that we had.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's great that you've connected with the local NICU and asking them what they do. I know it's a common practice to fortify breast milk for preterm babies. And some hospitals use a human milk fortifier and some hospitals use a formula fortifier. And I'm not doing this as often as others who are here might be. I'm not sure, we don't really have any hospital representation from what I'm seeing. But I would kind of defer to them. And I also just put a link in the chat. I just did a quick search and found a systematic review about feeding interventions for failure to thrive. That might be helpful.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone's input.
Thanks. That's a perfect kind of question to, use this time for. Anyone else have anything that any questions or anything they wanted to share? We have 20 minutes, but I also know it's summer in Maine, for me at least. I think most people here are from Maine.
I'm looking for that name of the director at Anna Jakes, and so if I get it in the next 5 minutes, I'll put it in the chat. I'm sorry I don't have it off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Rachel, would you mind putting your contact info in the chat so Robin can have that in case she finds it after?
Kara, did you want to share the next meetings? I know you kind of already went over the October one, but I didn't know if you had other things to share around those.
So let me look at, we still need to, Nicole, I don't know if you've gotten confirmation from Dr. Mangalam about the December 1st meeting, which should be.
I will go back through my emails with him. He's a little, I think he's on email a lot.
Sure. Well, actually, I'd be curious. I think I may have mentioned this to Amanda, but not to the rest of the board. Just an idea I'm having for next year's meeting format. Wondering how folks feel about this 2-hour format. Now that we're on Zoom all the time, we're not actually meeting in person. It would be great to hear people's thoughts. If you would like to see meetings around the state in person, that could be hybrid in person or Zoom combination, or if you would like just staying Zoom. And then another option, and this might end up going out in a survey at some point, we'll see. Another option might be to spend, so every even month, maybe we meet for 1 hour to have this kind of a new knowledge worth having, deeper dialogue, or however we want to call it, connecting the dots kind of a meeting where networking and sharing and question asking. And then on the other months, have a 1 hour webinar, or 1 hour educational session. I know a lot of people will start out these meetings with, I think we had 26 or 7 people in the meeting today. They were here, they wanted to hear the presentation, but then over time people drop off. Understandably, 2 hours is kind of a long time to commit. So well done, everyone, so far.
Well, didn't we used to do 3 with a lunch?
Yeah, well, that was when it was in person. You need to do that driving somewhere and going and being part of a meeting or calling in. So I would love to hear your thoughts, either unmute or type in the chat box or email us at mainebreastfeeds@gmail.com and see what you think. Did you kind of summarize that? Or is this what you're suggesting?
No, I summarized. Well, I think I did. Is that correct?
Yeah, so every even month or whatever, an hour connecting networking, and every odd month an hour, and maybe from 12 to 1. So it could be during people's lunchtime. I know it can be really hard for hospital staff in particular. They're not always coming to meetings because a 2-hour commitment is something that is likely not going to happen for them when they're working a shift. And for other folks, public health nurses, anyone who's working 2 hours is kind of a hard time. So, okay, Nina's saying I would prefer in-person, hybrid, or the alternating connection webinar schedule. Thanks, Nina, for sharing that. And our next board meeting is in September, and I plan on bringing that up then too. That's the time of year we tend to look at planning for the following year. And we always have a presenter, but I think the presenters would sometimes love an hour instead of a half an hour, or people who are listening would love for it to go on, a little bit longer too, since a half an hour can sometimes be rather quick.
Whoops, am I muted? No. I thought that the webinars were absolutely excellent, and I would love to do that, the 1 hour webinars. And then I like the idea of the touch base and keep in touch 1 hour. I agree that 2 hours, I'm kind of like, it's a little long. So I just want to give a shout out to you guys for organizing some fabulous webinars, and I would love to keep up with that. So I like the alternating connection webinar schedule. That's my vote.
Thanks, Robin.
I like that too. And I, as much as I love in-person meetings, it adds this layer of it takes up a lot more time in your day. I don't know. And I'm curious, as someone who was not on the board or in coalition meetings before, I think I had 1 board meeting before COVID in person, how the reach of these meetings might have changed since being entirely virtual, where folks can log on from anywhere, even if calling in was an option. Previously, I don't think, I'm guessing culturally that just wasn't a thing that we did. Really?
It was slowly developing to that, and then this is how we do a meeting virtually.
Yeah. And I do really love the idea of having a webinar style where the speaker can dig in more. There's more time for questions. They can go in more depth. Because yeah, 2 hours is really hard. 2 hours is a big chunk of the day. And I don't work a regular 9 to 5 job, and it's hard for me to do it. So that's my vote.
I would love to see everyone in person though. I think we all like can feel that different level of energy and inspiration when we get together. So if that can happen once or twice a year, that would be fantastic, and have some sort of an organized event around that. All right, well, we might put that out in an email, some kind of a poll for folks. So stay tuned. I think we're just about at the next part of the meeting, which is wrapping up. So again, thanks for hanging in there. And this is when we share a bit about what's coming up. And so I mentioned the next meeting, Rachel will be doing the talk about environmental contaminants in breast milk / chemical exposure during lactation / PFAS and breast milk. So really looking forward to that, October 6th. And then in September or October, we're hoping to do that film screening, possibly Freeport, possibly Rockland, Camden area, maybe Portland. We'll see. A lot of that still kind of up in the air. And then the filmmaker said she'd like to have it available online for people to have access to watch on their own too. So that will be really a great thing that we'd love to share around. And yeah, so this is also the part of the meeting where we go around and just share what is one thing we're taking away from today's meeting. And I would love to hear your thoughts. So if we could go around, and Amanda, would you like to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I loved hearing the personal stories from Hannah, and was it Bria, right? That, you know, it's always really helpful to hear those lived experiences and to bring us back to why, you know, we're doing this. So that was really great. And then I was glad that you put the link for the new AAP guidelines, because I hadn't actually, you know, seen them in hand. So that was great. I will look at those. So yeah, I just appreciate everyone coming on here and sharing and being part of our coalition community.
Thanks. Let's see, Lori, I don't know if you've had a chance to speak yet, or you had a chance, but we weren't able to hear from you. So I'll let you unmute if you're able to share anything you'd like to share, or type anything in the chat box. If you are also preferring to type something in the chat box, you're always welcome to do that. Okay, then Brenna.
I'm sorry, we were just talking about the next coming meeting. What did we miss? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the question for you and Brooks, I think, are just what are you taking away from today's meetings? We're just wrapping up with that question.
Well, I think you probably know that we're just looking forward to that conversation next month in October about the contaminants in breast milk and the land and stuff that we were just honestly talking about it just now. So I think we're just excited to see what's to come. And we learned a lot about the legislation, because we do have some participants that struggle with that aspect. So we're really grateful for that information today. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Jen? BJ?
So I really enjoyed Hannah and Bria's talk today, and then it's always good to see the different information, or hear the different information about legislation. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Brian? I don't know if you're still there. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate you guys.
Oh, you're kind of crackly. I'm not able to hear you that well.
Can you hear me?
It's a little.
I'm sorry, I'm a rapper, but I was gonna say I appreciate the time today and giving me a chance to see what's going on. Sorry, my mic is cutting out.
I heard a little bit of that. I appreciate you being. Thank you. Let's see, Nicole.
Sure. I think what I took away most was like hearing from Hannah and Bria, and really appreciated. They're not here anymore, but really appreciated hearing from them. It's a group of parents that is super under supported and under resourced and like not very visible, I think. So it was really important.
Thank you. Robin?
I liked hearing from those two single moms, and I was really interested to hear how what usually is called a crisis pregnancy for teens became actually very positive growth in their lives, and and they seem to have a nice family. So it's really good to hear that, and it's really important to hear how the work they did to get that. So I appreciate that. And I really liked hearing about the legislation, the Department of Labor, because all of us are women who are involved in breastfeeding. We have a lot to say to each other, but it was really great to hear from a guy in the Department of Labor. So a different kind of labor, but yeah, I appreciated having his input, and I would actually really like to hear more about that. So that might be a 1-hour webinar someday. Thank you.
I will say that was great too, but you're right. See the Department of Labor.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you. Deborah?
Yes, this was my first coalition meeting for the state of Maine, so it was kind of nice to join. I think my big takeaway was just how more common we're seeing the use of doulas. And I don't know if it was Bria or Hannah was just talking about just reclaiming your body. And that was pretty powerful, giving people options, birth options. I've seen some outcomes where people are saying, I'm not going to be inducted the next time because of just, the birth trauma that they experienced. And people need to have more options. And it's wonderful that, this is becoming a business. The doulas or birthing centers are becoming a business, an alternative as an option, because there's always not just one way of having a baby. I guess is my biggest takeaway. Thank you.
Thank you. So glad you're here. Keep coming. Nina, I think you're the last one.
Yeah, I loved hearing from Hannah and Bria. I agree with Nicole that it's just a population that doesn't often have a platform or a voice to share their stories. So it was really great to hear about their experiences. And thanks, Brian, for coming and sharing that information. It's really helpful. I also just want to say I really appreciate the opportunity to have an open dialogue about the AAP guidelines. And I really appreciate that the coalition isn't dogmatic about things and really welcomes a nuanced conversation and hearing all of the different perspectives. And I just appreciate that so much. And I think it's so valuable and makes our work even that much more effective and meaningful. So thank you for setting the tone, Kara, and for everybody who engages in these conversations.
Thank you, Nina, for being a part of them and adding to them very much. Excellent. Well, thank you all. I think everyone had a chance to go. Thank you all for sticking with this and hanging in there and being a part of this. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Hi.